Hello, welcome everybody to PJFM in Conversation. I'm Iris Dreschler, the artistic chair, and I'll be talking with Chen Shelach, the director of the film Muranow, about his film. Shalom.
Hi, shalom.
Let's start by asking you about the motivation, and I'm asking because your past films have always been in Israel, about your kibbutz, your family. So why now Muranow at this time?
Well, it started like an accident. Like I crashed into it and I didn't have the chance to leave it. But it all started when I came to Warsaw, to Kino Muranow, to the cinema, to screen one of my previous films, Praise the Lord. And on the last day of the festival in Warsaw, there was a guide that was taking us for a tour in Muranow neighborhood, which I didn't know nothing about it. And she was Polish. It wasn't an Israeli guide, so it was another angle of looking at things. And we were stopping first place, we're stopping near to a building, and she was saying that this is the Jewish neighborhood that used to be the Jewish neighborhood. That Muranow was the name of the Jewish neighborhood before World War. And she was talking about this building and saying that this building is the faculty for history learning in Warsaw, of the University of Warsaw. And it used to be before the SS quarter in Ghetto Warsaw. And this is one of the 2 or 3 buildings that will remain from the Jewish history, from the Jewish buildings of this neighborhood, that's, as I said, called Muranow, also before the war. And I asked her immediately, how is it to be a student for psychology in this building that used to be the SS quarter? You know, it's near, just near the train station for Treblinka. And she was saying that she heard about students that's talking about bad feelings over there, and that they see sometimes like flashlights, white flashlights. And this was on the last day of this festival in Warsaw. And then we walked a little bit more, and then she was telling me the story, a little bit of the story of this neighborhood after the war, because and before the war, because the history during the war, it's something that I think most of us know, that it was a neighborhood, and that it was a Warsaw ghetto, and there was the uprising, and that's what we know more. But what before and what after? Okay. She was telling me a little bit about it, about this neighborhood that is covered with the new neighborhood that was building from the remains a little bit. And I came back to Israel in the same day, and I just Google it, like Muranow, and because she was telling me about flashlights, and she said something about ghosts, of Jewish ghosts. I just put like Muranow plus ghosts in Google and start to study it. And it was like some kind of ghost took me and told me, you must do it. And I did it. After less than 2 months, I've been there with my friends to start shooting over there with no information, with no found nothing. And for the personal side, my grandfather, my mother is born next to Warsaw in Wyszków, which is a few kilometers from Warsaw. And my grandfather was disappearing on the 1st of September 1939, the day that the war, the Germans came to Warsaw, Warsaw, and we don't know nothing about what happened until he died. We know he died in the war, and I thought that's maybe my grandfather is also this ghost. That if you want, I can talk a little bit more about it. Just wandering around this area, this Jewish ghost that doesn't have a place to go, doesn't have. She's not in the cemetery. Nothing left. Like someone who was living, and suddenly is not there, and nothing remained. Nothing. Not a picture. We have one picture, but many of them no pictures, no day of death, no the reason of death, nothing. So this is what I was driving me into this story.
I'm asking, but I think we'll get to this a little later because it's also a little later in the film, that this, I think the psychology professor says that he thinks ghosts are connected to suppressed memories. And I wanted to talk about that, suppressed memories on many levels. But let's get a little bit to this after we talk about what you started seeing in the film. So when you went back to Muranow, what did you expect? Like two months afterwards, you're coming to Muranow with a camera, a man with a camera walking in the streets. What did you think you would find?
I really didn't know. I was talking before to Matan Shefi, which is an Israeli that's living there, and he's one of the characters in the film. And first of all, I came to him and I started to talk with him and talk to him and to understand a little bit more about the neighborhood. It was the first day there. And then he told me about that he knows someone that might be interesting for me. So I went, and then someone told me, one of our crew, Kasha, she told me about her professor for psychology, which this is Michal Belevich, which you were talking about. And you know, this interview that you're talking about is the first time I met him. He didn't know me, I didn't know him. We just put the camera and start to talk to him. And that's what came out at last in the film. And I was surprised from how the Polish people was cooperating with me.
Which Polish people, the staff or in general?
The character. There was no staff except Kasha, which is also, she's been to Israel. She's living in Warsaw. She's been to Israel. Okay. She's speaking a little bit Hebrew, so she was helping us very much. But I'm talking about the Polish character, that's people that became characters after it. Or we were just talking, and I was surprised that people talking to me without fear. Without fear about what we will think about them, without trying to hide things, just talking to us. And it was very interesting. It was very warming. Because it was a very nice surprise. And even that's, everything came instead of the camera, in front of the camera, like when we met Zuzana Rajic, that she's talking about this bones in the bricks. I was surprised. It's the first time that I heard about it. So every time we were, something was happening, we got some new information, I was asking myself, how come that I didn't know it? How come that this is not something that people in Israel know?
You're right.
So many youth delegations coming there. Nobody talked about the history, not before that it was it was the Jewish, like New York today. So, and after how people talk, walking there, going to the museum, the Polish museum, going to doing like these ceremonies, but we are standing about an enormous graveyard. This is what is this place.
I thought when I saw the film that many places in the world, there are places in the world where civilizations build themselves on ancient civilizations. That's also true for Israel. But here we're talking about just a few decades. It's not like ancient history. It's shocking. It's very different.
As far as I know, that I studied, this is the this is also this Professor Bilevich saying, this is the most extreme version of a very ordinary story. And it's extreme version because nothing was left. It's, there's a urbanic triangle, which have houses, which people that's living there, and they're making their culture. So many places, also in Israel, in other places, like two of the two disappeared, like it's not the same buildings, but it's the same people. It's the same people, but it's not the same buildings. Here at once, it's become not the same people, not the same houses, not the same culture, on the same spot. And in such a tragedy that's become at once. And I think this is what making it extreme. And this will make what making it very interesting to find out about it, because the most interesting is to deal for me with the extreme versions of things. Because if you're talking about extreme, it's much easier to understand the ordinary one. The places, like you say, it's about ancient history. It's become everywhere, and everywhere in the world you have to know how to deal with the past.
Okay. You bring up later in the film, we'll touch. Actually, the next thing that came up is the Israeli delegations, and I think this is a good segue to go into one of the points you bring up when trying to think what was there before and how do I want to remember it. And the Israeli delegation, what struck me were a few things. First of all, their big speech about pride, which you kept in, which you decided to put in the film, and I guess it maybe struck you in some way. For me, this theme of pride, I'll quote the courageous souls of Warsaw, the resilience, blazing pride. We fought with pride. Now we defend our lives and what is rightfully ours with pride. And then another woman, they all chant, you died with pride so that we can live in pride. How do you understand this? Do you have any thoughts about it? I don't remember speaking so much about pride some years ago in Israel.
This is even stranger because you're talking about the American, what you're talking is about the American youth delegation.
Okay.
Which is talking about like our pride, our wars, and the living in America. So this is even stranger, was even strange for me, much more than the other delegation, the Israelis. But the Israelis doing almost the same thing with the flags, these big flags, these huge speakers, these ceremonies of singing and dancing over there. I think that we tried to deal in this film also it's the meaning of being Jewish after Second World War. What is the meaning of it? And I think that in Israel everybody agree that the first part of the sentence should be never again. I don't think someone think the other way. Right. But what is the second part of the sentence?
Okay.
And we believe, me and Michal Livne, what's doing this film with me, is that it should be something about humanity. Okay. Humanity. What is the meaning of being Jewish after the Holocaust? It's not to be racist. It's to get against any racism everywhere. It's to respect the minority. It's all of these things that must be the meaning of being a Jewish, one of the meanings after the war. And the delegation, the Israeli delegation, some of them, I don't want to say every one of them, some of them are staying with the first part, with these huge flags that's coming to the neighborhood. That's also people living there today, and you have the right to live there today. And what is the meaning of coming there and to this huge flags and then going to the mall and going to the mall without it? Don't show that you are Jewish, don't show you're Israeli.
I wanted to ask you about this because it's so surprising, especially if in your mind you keep that big speech about pride and we're so proud to be Jews, and then the instructions, the security instructions are, don't let anybody know that you're Jewish or Israeli. It's like going to the mall like thieves in the night. So I was thinking, what's the point of going shopping if you are so scared, if you have to hide your identity, if you think that people will not welcome you there? The film suggested something about this pride in our narrative. Is it so fragile that even a walk to the mall can shake this humongous pride that we have as Jews?
I don't know if you remember that's what Levi Eshkol used to say sometimes was in Yiddish. I must.
Levi Eshkol was Israeli
Prime Minister. Yeah, but he was saying something like Shimshon the Nebech. Like, you know, I want to be like Shimshon HaGibor, but we are Shimshon HaGibor, but we almost Nebech, you know, poor, and that was something that he was saying. That's a phrase of Levi Eshkol, Shimshon the Nebech. And I think there's something that's happening over there. You are great Israel, very strong, never again, and then fighting for someone that will do something for us. And this is the way we're looking at the Polish people now.
Okay.
And this is something that it's not good, not for them, but for us. I really, it's okay for them. I don't, you know, what the Polish wants, they want. And it's not my deal.
Right.
But for us to see this all Polish people as someone that you should be afraid of, you should be going at, everyone is anti-Semitic. This is the opposite of what I was talking before. What is it, the meaning of being Jewish after the war? It's not.
But here I have to ask you, you put in the film that little very uncomfortable piece where you go into the apartment and the interview, and this suspicious person who lives in the apartment asks the guy you interview, who are you talking with? And he says, it's okay, they want to know the history. And I thought it was the Jews coming back or something. So you did choose to include it in the film.
Yes, because it was happening. Of course, I didn't understand what was happening because it was in Polish, but when someone is threatening you, it doesn't matter what the language you understand, that you're not welcome. And it was very important. I'm not saying at all that that says no anti-Semitic in Poland. I don't think that's the Polish thing about it, that this is true. Of course there is anti-Semitic, and of course this is happening. And of course people think about it, but not everyone, not all of them.
Sure.
So, and we like my cousins saying, we're not going to Warsaw, never. Our legs will not touch the Polish ground.
Okay.
But they're going to Berlin, to a vacation in Berlin. And I was asking myself how it's become that the Polish is the one that we never touch, our legs will never touch, but the Berlin, where it all started, well, it's okay, where it's very cheap and we can find things over there, and the beer is very, very cheap. But to go to Poland now, and I'm saying this something happening here. Something is like the Germans succeed in what they wanted from the beginning, not to put a death camp on German lands, only on Polish lands. So, we don't do it in our home, these dirty things, we can do it outside. And I think that this is something that we can't ignore, that there is Poland, there's bad things, but also good things that's happening. And it's important for us to understand it.
Kind of have negative thoughts about a big group of people is not right. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that we are as Jewish after the war cannot look at another people as one big, I don't know, vicious.
Okay. Stereotype.
We cannot do it, this stereotype. This is one of the lessons that we should take from the Holocaust. Not only to be strong and never again to be dependent on someone else.
To be careful not to fall into the type of thinking that led to this disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Not to hate people in general. So the first thing you heard about was the ghosts. And the ghosts come, I know it's a very interesting thing to put in a film. What did you believe them? What did you make of this? Is it a cultural thing? I'm not saying not to believe them. I can't say, the architect is an architect. He seemed pretty connected to reality. So if he hears someone baking in his kitchen, I can't tell him, no, that's not possible.
That's what I'm thinking also. I'm sure that he living with a ghost, that her name is Rachela.
You are sure?
I'm sure. I'm not sure that I will be able to meet Rachela or to feel it or even to live in it as personal. But I'm sure that this is what his experience. This is his experience. I'm sure. And
why are you so sure?
Because I believe people. I believe that this is the feelings that he have. This is the thought that he have. And I'm not judging people, and it was very important for us in the film, not, he's an architect, he's a charming man, and there are another one that she's a manicure that she has an own business, her own business she's managing. All of those people, and someone that's have dreams, she's doctor, and she's the manager of the library of the Museum of Warsaw. All of those people are people that are educated, they're not drunk, they're not narcotic. This is what they feel, and this is why it makes it interesting. And that was in the premiere like last month in Warsaw. They was asking these questions, and almost all the characters was there, and they were asking the manicure, what's changed since you were filmed in they were filming you.
Right.
And she was saying that in the film, she's telling us about a ghost that someone told her that there is outside of the shop of her business.
Yes.
But now she knows there is. She's living in her house and she has pictures. She sent me them. So, and in the picture you can...
Pictures of what?
Like in like cloud that have face and coming in the same times, at the same time, or something in the room that some light is...
And can you see it too in the picture?
I can see the picture. I can see it in the picture. I'm not sure that this is a real ghost, No,
I understand. Okay.
But you can see it, you can see it. It's not something that you have to imagine, You can see the cloud that you have a face of someone in a small, very, very small window. But it started like, it was very interesting, the ghost, but then after it's become something more like a metaphor of the price, not just because we didn't want to do a ghost movie or like a mambo jumbo film, like...
No, right. Susanna suggests that, and I think it's not just in the Jewish culture, I think that some souls wander around because nobody brought them to burial or nobody cried for them. It reminded me of the movie Son of Saul, where it is so, do you remember? No? Okay. Where it is so important for him to bring his son in the death camp to burial.
Yes, the son of Shaul.
Okay,
the son of Shaul.
In English, is the son of Saul.
Okay.
So, did you inquire? Did you look into this a little bit more about why souls are wandering around in the Jewish tradition? Why can't they find their place of rest? Because we say also in the burial, Tanuach b'shalom al mishkavcha, which means rest in peace. So the Jews believe that souls can wander around if they don't rest in peace.
But of course, look at, when you're looking at the film, you see that's the one that's seeing the ghost of the Jewish ghosts are Christians, not Jewish. And because I think that when you're not talking about the past, when you know that somewhere in you that you're living in the place, it was one of the biggest tragedy in the modern history, maybe the biggest one. And you're living there, and it's buried. You can see the cellars. Still, you can see the cellars when you open the ground.
It's buried, but it's not gone.
That's right.
There. It's buried, but it's not gone.
Buried. And it's also not like the things that it can be that these are bones in the bricks. It's everywhere. And when you're looking, and when I'm going in this neighborhood, I cannot miss these red stones, small red stones. Just a minute, I show you.
Are you going to show me a bone?
I'm going to show you a bricks that I was coming over there.
Okay.
And someone was, doing makeover with kitchen or something. So these bricks, part of bricks were outside. And then I couldn't hold myself to just take it and bring it back home. So you can see this, you can see what the bricks are made of.
Are made of pieces of something, of
Pieces
rubble,
of
of remains, yeah.
wood, whatever you can imagine, and you can imagine what else you can see here.
Yes.
So, and all of this neighborhood is, all the ground of the neighborhoods is like this color, like the red color. And because it's coming from the underground to the ground all the time, after rain, after snow, everything is coming up. And you're living in a place that's, this is what's happening there physically. And what else is, I think, is very difficult for someone that's lived there, that's nothing remain. It remain nothing underground, only
overground, only under.
Nothing overground, only under. So your imagination must be working
or
very hard.
So the narratives, there is a lot of screen space relatively that you allotted to the March of Independence, which is a very strong, I would say, cinematic presence. It's scary. So the March of Independence is people who are claiming Muranow is the place that will show us that Poland should be for the Poles and Europe should be for the Europeans. This is what they get from Muranow. And then there are the Polish soldiers who come there to commemorate for the government, the Polish government, the Poles who were victims. So Muranow is also the place of the victims. And then the Jewish Israeli delegations who come to say that Muranow is the beginning of really something new, and your history professor doesn't really like that narrative. He thinks there is a problem with it. Can you talk about these three narratives and the general meaning of them for you?
Yes, I think that is in the film what you're saying, that there is, everyone is taking this narrative of this place, his own narrative, to suggest things that he's doing now, to make his belief, to justify what he's doing today. For the Israeli is to be strong, and it is one of the reasons why to make the Israeli state. In Zionism, this is one of it. For the Polish, this is the narrative of being a victim. Also, you're not the only victim, the Jewish. By the way, it's interesting that we are talking about Polish and about Jewish. The Jewish over there was Polish. There was Christian Polish and there was Jewish that's living Polish in Poland. So, but we're talking about Polish, we're talking about Christians. And we're talking about Jews, we're talking about like Jewish, but we don't remember that there was Polish citizens. And I really was, you know, what Michal Bilevi, this professor, we're talking for like the third time about him, was saying that the death of them, of these private people that was dying there, it doesn't have a meaning of political meaning. They was dying. It was a big tragedy, but they didn't, when they were dying, they didn't say for the Polish be like this. They didn't say for the Israelis, take it and make it, you know, going, I don't know where. And this is what is like happening today with the Holocaust. That's everyone taking it for his own narrative.
Okay.
And this is something that's the political, it's happening all the time now.
But what in your mind is the problem with this? What should we be sensitive to or aware of when we take a big event like this and make it part of our narrative? What in your opinion should we be cautious about, if there is anything?
There's so many things, but I was talking before about humanity, but I want to you know, my beautiful song, that's a poem, that's a Benny Mer, which helped me very much in making this film. It's about my sister Chaya. It's talking about a girl that was living in Muranow. She was very poor. And the poem is talking about he's the one that's writing the poem. He's the only one that stayed alive and is living in Israel. He died already, but he's living in Israel. And he's the only one that's remembered that was Chaya, his sister, that was taking him to garden and was talking with him, and when the parents went to work. And I want to remember, like Benny May was saying, this Chaya, this also the people that were living there, not only the death, not to commemorate only the death, but to commemorate their life and the life and the culture that's been there. And even to think about it, what would they be, what happened if there wasn't war, if there was no war? For my personal family, if I'm not taking, you know, the tragic side, but I coming from a family that was very, very poor. My grandmother didn't know to read or write. And now, you know, it's just 2 generations from there. My cousins, you know, we study with doctors, we have a, you know, everybody's, but maybe if we were staying there, we are from the family that was still, you know, living in the farm of some goy and doing nothing. So it's like an intellectual, you know, to think about those things and to try to think about the life also.
Besides the national level of translating this event and connecting it to the creation of the State of Israel, you want to know more about your Saba, your grandfather, his life, what his culture was like, what his language was like, what he did during the week, how he dressed, things, who he loved. Do you think that you know, what poems did he, maybe he did, maybe he wasn't a cultural thing. So he was what when he lived there, what was his profession?
My grandfather was a baker.
Okay.
In a bakery, don't know where. We didn't know if he owned the bakery or he was working. Now we know that he was just working. He didn't own the bakery. But yeah, that's what he was doing.
If you want to get closer to your grandfather in that sense, do you think you know enough about the culture of the Ashkenazi Jews from that, who were poor, who lived in Poland, Eastern Europe, who did jobs like being tailors, bakers, were not literate? Do you think you know enough about that in general?
No, I think I don't know enough about it. I think it's it's not accident, you know, that I don't know nothing about it. This is on purpose. And I think this is part of making this new Jewish that is in Israeli, is not living in the Gola, is strong, is everything else, but not the Jewish that it was before. And so there was real cutting in the days of Ben Gurion, of the being just to look back. It was like, you know, like a shetlot. Don't look back. Right. Never look back. Look only for the future. Right. And to be born as a new man, as a new people. And all of the families, my family was Knurovich, I'm Shelach, and we changed everything.
They changed the names, right?
And
right,
yes,
right.
And when I'm looking at the one picture that left for my grandfather, I'm looking at him. It is like, you know, it's like 300 years ago he was living, not just 70 years ago since he was taking and been murdered. And this is part of it.
I understand perfectly what you're saying because, you know, some years ago, if our grandparents or if someone spoke Polish, you would feel very ashamed. If they spoke Yiddish, of course, you would feel ashamed. As a secular Zionist Israeli, I would say, So the ghosts in Muranow are not just for the Poles and the people who live there to remember, but in a way for, this is what I understand from what you're saying, but for us Israelis too, saying there is a big seller of Ashkenazi Judaism that we have not gotten to know well enough the way we should in our culture. Are you saying this, Ken?
I'm not saying that I'm going there and then, just feeling and it must be there all the time to think about my grandfather, I'm living my life.
Right.
But in some way, I'm feeling that if I could be there, like, for one Shabbat, if I could be like in the film that we were making, like in the 31 of August 31, to be there and to tell them, go away, run away, because it's going to be the most disaster that you can, the biggest disaster that you can even imagine what it's going to be just for tomorrow, go away. But of course, it's something that we can't do.
No, only in films. There is a part in the film where you create a digital film where you place just today people as characters of them. So maybe in that little film you can, the black and white film in your film, maybe there you can say to your grandfather, I know what's going to happen. Get away from here now. Tomorrow you will not be alive.
In this film, there's a scene that's Pesia. I get all the characters. These films are my family names, for part of my family. And my grandmother, Pesia, she's asking for someone that's selling her something. She's asking him to give her pencils for the small kid that's going tomorrow for the first year of school. It's the 1st of September. And she's asking him if this is going to be, if this is a good one. And he's saying, wow, it's going to be for many, he will use it for many, many years. And this is, it's something that's, you think about it, that is one day, everything is looking familiar. And the second day, just something happened and nothing left, nothing in 1 minute.
So here's my last question to you. I think the film suggests different types of endings or closures. I'm not sure what the word is, and maybe it's neither of these. The woman who lives near the Rappaport Memorial says that she understands that for Jews it's a big cemetery, but they live here, they have to fit in, which I thought was a valid point of view from, of course, I mean, I'm not, it's not for me to judge, but she said, look, we're alive. This is our apartment. We have to be able to live here, maybe without all this noise and dancing and ceremony at night, in the day, like, maybe the ceremonies, the Israeli delegations are missing the point when they're doing what they're doing. I'm not sure. And then, of course, it's the digital film that's trying to recreate the characters as if they're still moving and talking in the research. And there is also another option at the end of the film that maybe we should just stop thinking about everybody that was lost in Muranow, and then you can just lie on the grass, sunbathe, and forget that underneath you is a big cemetery, or maybe not forget. Maybe something else. Is there any type of closure or understanding for you from this film?
My closure was like 1-2 months after the premiere of the film in Israel in the Jerusalem Film Festival. When a guide that's taking a youth delegation for Poland asked me to screen the film in front of the guides organization, and we were screening, and there was like 200 people. And after the screen, there was asked me if they can talk to some of the characters of the film.
If they can talk when they go to
these guides talk, because they was talking for me, but also one to each other. Maybe we shouldn't go with these big flags. Maybe we can do it very, maybe we can hear each other without speakers. And maybe we can do something like in other ways to do it, because it's also the Corona, it's time for thinking now, and there's no delegation right now. And I was talking to some of the characters, and there were a Zoom meeting between 4 or 5 from the characters of the film. And with this use guides that came like 20, maybe more. And it was very, very interesting. They were talking one another, and they were talking about to cooperate maybe. When, you know, when the delegation will come to Muranow, and they're coming over there. Why not to meet, like maybe for half an hour to meet Professor Bilevich? Why not to meet Machet, the architect, and talk with him a little bit about living over there, not to be afraid of each other. And this was for me, this was the closure, you know, like making this something that will be a dialogue about this place. And this is for me was the best closure.
This is a beautiful idea, really. If you have achieved this with your film, that's a humongous achievement. Congratulations, Ken. Thank
you, yes.
It's not only a beautiful film to look at, but very thought-provoking, not provoking, but very in-depth film about memory and what do we do with it. Thank you so much, and I wish you luck. I hope to see another film from you coming soon. Don't say anything now, but I do hope so. Thank
you very much. Thank you. Thanks, Olivia, and all the festival team for inviting me.
We're happy to have you at the Philadelphia Jewish Film and Media Festival. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.